Oh joy, it's yet another game published by Sometimes You. I gotta admit, the name alone got me interested, and Sometimes You hands out free review copies with no questions asked. So screw it, let's see what this is all about. The story is almost non-existent, so much so that I'm surprised they even bothered making opening and closing cutscenes. It's only explained in the product description on the store page. You're playing as a demoness called by lay occultists. You mean these anime high schoolers? One of them forgot to put on pants or a skirt. Oh, whatever. During the summoning ritual, they made a mistake and raised the dead while turning themselves into zombies. Now you have to make it home by jumping through portals, all while making your way through hordes of the undead. That's fine, the game doesn't need a good story, and I appreciate that it doesn't waste time in getting things moving. It opens up with a brief tutorial, but it only explains part of the controls. You have to figure out most of it on your own. How do you reload in most shooter games? It's usually square or one of the other face buttons, right? No, it's L1. Okay, so how do you jump? Is it the X button? No, it's square. That's so strange. There's a crouch and a dodge roll too, which are hardly effective and don't serve much of a purpose. Melee attacks are set to R1, while the firing button is set to R2. But this is idiotic because you can't even do a melee attack without first equipping a melee weapon. So what's the point? They both should have just been the same button. What about switching weapons? You can see them lined along the bottom, so maybe the D-pad? Well, it is, but you press up and down to cycle through them instead of left and right. The controls are all over the place and not at all what would be considered typical or intuitive. And no, of course they can't be remapped. But worst of all is one of my greatest pet peeves. You have to keep the left stick held down the entire time in order to sprint. Any other typical game only requires a mere click, not having to keep the joystick pressed in. This all feels like it was designed by someone who has never held a controller in their life, and it's a hassle to play. After you get past the tutorial, you'll find yourself in a simple arena where you have to take out waves of generic enemies with brainless AI using an assault rifle and a pistol. This is about the whole game, stretched out for 2 hours. Oh dude, they put me in the game! Well, now it's awesome. The last wave always culminates in a boss fight, although there's really not much to it. Each progressing level features a new weapon and a different aesthetic theme. The second level is the worst because you're only allowed to use a sword. I'm pretty sure this is some kind of a mistake because there's still plenty of ammo scattered around, but there aren't any guns. The shooting mechanics are bad enough already. It's surprisingly difficult to hit your mark. It feels like half the time the bullets just go wherever the hell they want to, but the melee attacks barely work at all. Oh, but they brought me back in my summer outfit. Now it's okay. There's also a stamina bar underneath your health which governs when you're allowed to sprint or swing a melee attack, but it recovers so quickly that it hardly does anything at all. It's pretty pointless, much like this entire game. At least the boss is easy to kill. All you do is circle around him and that's it. The second and third levels are different in the sense that you slowly progress as the map opens up, but the rest of the game just takes place in large arenas, especially the fifth level. That one is massive. In addition to the previous weapons I mentioned, you get a rocket launcher, shotgun, sniper rifle, and a futuristic plasma rifle, which really comes out of nowhere. Aside from a bunch of variations of anime teenagers and fat otakus, there's also generic skeletons, huge bugs, these future alien monsters, I guess? It's very strange. And the last level is a fantasy theme, complete with these Final Fantasy bomb monster ripoffs. There's absolutely no style or consistency whatsoever. It's just a mishmash of random assets. The weapons are out of whack. The assault rifle and plasma rifle work well enough, and the sniper rifle is crazy powerful as long as you hit your mark. Strangely, the rocket launcher and shotgun are very weak and are better suited more so with attacking groups of enemies, but that's unfortunately a really bad idea. Most of the time, it can be fine, but in select areas, particularly the final part of the game, the level geometry can have wonky collision and enemies can get stuck in the ground or otherwise vanish from the map due to receiving certain attacks. I know there's an enemy here from the radar compass along the top of the screen, and I can hear the sound effects too, but they're nowhere to be seen. If this happens, then you'll have no choice but to restart the whole level from the first wave. Not that it matters all that much because the game is really easy, even on the hardest difficulty. Your health can drop quickly, but there's plenty of healing pickups scattered around, and even if you do die, you go into what's called resurrection time. You run around trying to collect these other health pickups in order to revive yourself, and then you just pick up where you left off. There are so many of these resurrection pickups in each map that you can die multiple times and you'll still be fine. Except for the last map where the game is a little bit less forgiving, but as long as you don't mess around and you stick to using your strongest weapons, then it's still not that big of a deal. Besides from the main campaign, there's what's called Endless Mode, which takes place on its own map. As the name suggests, it seems to go on forever, although I'm sure as hell not gonna test that claim. Here, you only start off with a bow, and there are other weapons unique to this mode as well. Killing enemies will have them drop blue and red currency, which are used to buy weapons and ammo, respectively. You should already have an idea for how this goes. Keep on killing and collecting money for as long as you can. You can even buy traps and turrets to place down anywhere you like, but it's too bad that none of this matters because the game is still awful. You kind of just have to take my word for it and judge what you see in this footage, but believe me, it doesn't control very well at all. It somehow manages to be both floaty and stiff at the same time. The only change in the AI pattern is to run away when they're low on health, but besides that, they'll just very slowly and ineffectively attempt to throw themselves at you. So they're hardly much fun to fight against. There's not much to say about the audio. The only music is a low, droning ambient track that doesn't loop properly, and the sound effects are passable at best. The titular Succubus character will randomly say sweet nothings on occasion for no reason, which is stupid. Visually, the game isn't horrible. It's at least bright, colorful, and easy to see for the most part, but it clearly looks like a Unity asset flip game. Speaking of which, a friend brought to my attention that the sword is pretty clearly ripped off from another game called Infinity Blade. So, you know, that's nice, just straight up copyright infringement of another game's assets. I also gotta bring this up again. Almost nothing in this game looks like they go together. The anime teenagers, the medieval skeletons, the giant bugs, the rock golems, the aliens. There's no consistency at all, and none of it makes any sense. The whole game lasts for about 2 hours, no more than 2.5, and is one of the easiest platinum trophies I've gotten, for whatever that's worth. The controls suck, the maps suck, everything about the game sucks. There might have been potential with Endless Mode, but it doesn't matter when the foundation is so bad. It's pretty crazy to go from a competent third-person shooter like Returnal, which I just reviewed. I mean, I had problems with it, it's hardly my favorite game, but at least it's well made. Going from a proper game like that to this? It really makes you appreciate the whole range of video games out there, from the mediocre to the really, really bad ones. This would have been fine as a personal portfolio project uploaded to itch.io for free, but not as a published game that's going for $6 on Steam or $10 on PlayStation. It is far from the worst game I've ever played. At the very least, it's short and easy to get through, but considering the amount of content and the overall low quality, there's no reason whatsoever to play this game. Even as a joke, like, oh hey, look guys, I'm playing the funny meme game. It's not worth it, there's really nothing to see here. Thanks for watching my review of Succubus with Guns.